So, good afternoon. And I realize I'm at a bad time. I stand between you and the reception and drinks. But what I hope what I have to say is interesting. Today's world is global, digital, and connected. And many companies are challenged and trying to understand how to deal in that new space. Thoughts, information, opinions, reviews, comments are coming from everywhere, and sometimes not coming to the organization. They're happening around you. You may not know. Hey, Steve. So, are you listening to what's being said? Are you actively listening to what is being said? Do you know what impact all of those words, those comments, opinions are having on you in real time? What impact they're having on your revenue? What impact they're having on your organization? What impact they're having on your brand? And do you know the actual level of satisfaction, sentiment across members and customers with your organization? So today, I'm going to provide you some options that allow you to actively listen. Some of these are conceptual, some of these are tactical, but opportunities to really listen proactively to your customers. Reap the benefit of the change in your organization's behavior, and hopefully create higher levels of satisfaction, which actually translate to increased customer sentiment and increased revenue. So this is the world today, much different than the world that everybody existed in not 5 years ago. And this is what the voice of the customer looks like. This is actually a map of Europe with all the air traffic. But when I seen this, I was like, this is exactly what goes on today. And in most organizations, small or large, there are only a small group of people or a single person that is trying to digest, gain intelligence, and understand everything that is actually happening with an organization. So that obviously creates influence, and it has incredible reach that is very hard to grasp, understand, and bring back into the organization. Most organizations rely on surveys, periodic, whether they be periodic, whether they be annual. They're not in real time. They're analyzed in 3 months, they're analyzed in 6 months. That approach is incredibly reactive. By the time you digest what has been said about you, what has been said to you, you could have experienced revenue challenges. You could have lost that customer. Given that reach, that customer could be out there saying very bad things about your organization. You may not understand at the time what that impact will be 6, 9, 12 months later. You're looking at your financial projections saying, this isn't happening. What went wrong? So, oops. A little too far. So a couple examples of active listening and some of the impacts that we as humans deal with. So imagine you get a flat tire, you're on the side of the highway, it's during rush hour, you're stressed out because you're trying to get to work. You wait 2 hours for the tow truck to come. You eventually get the tire fixed, you get to work. For 2 days, 3 days, 5 days afterwards, everybody at work is hearing about your experience, your high level of angst, your high level of anger about the poor customer service you experienced because that tow truck took 2 hours to get to you. Advance 6 months, you may get a survey in the mail. Well, are you really remembering the emotion that you had in the immediate in that short time period? Most likely not. All of the things in your life have changed that perception. We all remember things quite differently when we look back into the past. So if you are capturing feedback reactively, you're not getting the true set of information that people really need to share with you to help you better serve them. Another example, you dread making a call to a customer service. I hate to use a cable company, but let's just say a cable company. You know you have to make this call. You've been putting it off. You finally suck it up. You make the call. You know you're going to get caught up in the interactive voice response system. You know it's going to frustrate the hell out of you going through it, but you get through it. You check the box. You're actually satisfied that you bore that process But what's not realized is that person, whether they forget over time that actual high level of frustration and view it more from a satisfaction perspective that they have successfully completed that arduous process, when they go to provide that opinion on that survey that may come, or subconsciously they're thinking, okay, yeah, I'm getting decent service. I successfully completed that transaction, but subconsciously something's sticking in their mind that they're not going to recommend that company to Bob. They may not be able to put their finger on it. And that's a challenge, that when you're in a reactive mode collecting feedback, you're not actually getting the true feedback that you need to be a better organization and to better serve your customers. So a couple data points, and I know this is hard to see. It's hard even to see on a piece of paper. But this is showing the confluence of mobile and other customer inputs to different organizations and the change over time. Demographics are shifting. I think everybody recognizes that there are more ways to interact with an organization. So, and with that, those changes in interfaces, this shows that primarily, not 5 years ago, all the traffic was coming through a desktop, laptop, browser-based. Still phone, still through email, still in person. Now, the traffic is coming 1/3 off desktop, 1/3 off tablet, 1/3 off the phone. And these locations are changing. So before, when you had business hours, you had that opportunity to ingest the feedback. Now the desktops are coming primarily during the day, tablets through the evening, phones, both, anytime, really. People on a bus commuting to work. So I'll skip through these. So we've gone from a world that was very much a single channel world, again, email, phone, in person, where much was reactive, much was where you collected the yearly surveys, quarterly surveys, passive, always looking backwards. So that high touch, in person, talking via voice, has transitioned to low touch. Sorry, I was a little taken. Jen said my slides maybe messed up, and they are. So we've now moved into the omni-channel world, where it's mobile, social, web, phone, email, in person, interactive, it's far-reaching, it's live, it's very fast. Going back to the slide with Europe, with the air traffic, there's tons and tons of communication. So this omni-channel world now has all of these inputs. And for an organization that is used to only a couple channels, you're now dealing with an experience across all of these different channels coming, or these communication points coming in. And I find this statistic very interesting, that a recent Harris Interactive study showed that 63% of consumers who encounter a bad mobile experience from a brand believe the organization will not meet their expectations across any of their other channels, web, bricks, or mortar. And that's kind of scary for an organization. And particularly those that are grasping with how to, and I won't use the word transform, appreciate what was said earlier, that it is actually an evolution, but I do strongly believe that there are some organizations that are in the transformative phase because their market has changed radically. So this all translates to money and to the customers. And now to move into the customer experience, that omni-channel world and all of those inputs, all those opportunities to interact, all of that feedback, all of the social, all of that voice feeds into that, on the left, the experience and expectations. Getting to the subconscious, many organizations think, okay, I've just launched the e-commerce module, my storefront's great, I'm able to sell, I like the way this reads. But no one has taken a step back to say, okay, what does the customer truly think and represent about that? And people need to take that step back because of those subconscious things that happen in our minds that even over the passage of time, we have formulated some opinion. If we see a particular color, if we see a particular visual interruption, that actually causes us to pause and creates a negative perception. That's why the experience is so important. All of that translates into satisfaction, whether that's negative comments and poor performance, but satisfaction nonetheless. That then is indicative of the future behaviors, whether that's conversion, retention, loyalty, and word of mouth. Again, that all translates into money and your sales. So every organization wants to grow and have financial success. And the customer experience is really a two-way street. In order to create that financial success, you really need to drive your customers to exhibit the behaviors that match your financial goals. But your part of the deal is that you need to model how you are managing the experience to drive those behaviors. And that's where actively listening to what they're saying, ingesting that customer feedback, as what was said in the previous presentation, looking at those segments, looking at that data, and having somebody or a group of people that can actually take a step back. In my own experience, one of the tools I'll talk about towards the end, it gives you reams of data. There are a lot of open comments. And there was a point in time where I'd look at those and say, what are they talking about? It does work. This is how it looks great. It works well. They can do what they need to do. But I had to challenge myself to take a step back and say, okay, I'm looking at that through a series of my own filters. I need to take a step back and look at that through the customer's eyes so that I actually really do see what is happening. So institutional knowledge and those filters. In most organizations, I have heard this over time, we know exactly who our customers are. We know what our customers want. We know why they love our product. We know what they're saying about the product. We know how the product needs to work. When you ask a further question, no one has saying, what did you do from a customer experience input perspective? Oh, we just know. You know, we looked at that survey 6 months ago, and I always pause and say, okay. A great book, just to take a quick diversion, is Customers Included by my friends Phil Terry and Mark Hurst. They have really focused on attempting to bring customers into that process for organizations. They're traveling around the country now. If I can connect you with them, if you're interested in bringing them into your organization, I highly recommend it. It's a great presentation and very important. One of the great things, however, out of this book is this slide. And this isn't to be negative against any marketers, but it starts off with, on the left, how marketing requested it, how sales ordered it, how the engineers designed it, what was manufactured, what was installed, and ultimately what the customer wanted. And the challenge with all this is that we've all looked at that and took upon those activities with our own filters. Whether we were marketing, engineering, developers, whatnot, we have all sat there and said, okay, we know who our customers are. We know exactly what they want, and we've gone forward and created exactly that. So, to active listening. How many people, and you're probably maybe doing this to me now, saying, oh, maybe this is what he's going to say next. We as humans always try to expect. We are always trying to survey the landscape and think about what that next interaction is. As someone's talking with us, we're already forming that question in our mind that we're going to ask them next. So we really never took a step back and listened to exactly what they were trying to say and hear the words they were trying to say. So in addition to jumping the gun and trying to think we understand what they're saying, we're then applying our filters, our knowledge base to what they're saying, and we're making those equations in our mind to say, oh, this is what they mean. This is exactly what they want. We've done that before they have even stopped speaking. And the opportunity here with active listening is to actually clear your mind, listen, and put yourself in their position, whether you're looking at survey results or you're having an in-person conversation or you're on the phone, is to take that step back, move your mind out of the conversation for a second and really listen. And if you do really listen, there are amazing things that you will discover. There are amazing insights that you will gain. It's not much different than a focus group, but even focus groups, when you're conducting research, ethnographic or whatnot, you've constructed that in such a way to come out to the aims that you're trying to get. That's still not actively listening to what they're saying. I mean, these people that you're talking with are your future customers, your current customers, and they are indicative of your financial success going forward, whether that be at an individual level or a company level. Organizations really, and people need to change how they're engaging and how they're interacting. And if you do that, you have the opportunity to take a step back, really listen, and credibly respond to what is being said. As a result, you can measure what's being said and improve. And in a very iterative way, not to be reactive and wait. You need to be proactive. You need to be ingesting that continuously. So what are your options? Some tactics. These may not be news to anybody, but they are two of many ways to do it. The first is to look outside in. It's really a systems thinking approach. Anybody has their MBA, you're going to hear, go through that for semesters. But it's not often that organizations do that. They contain themselves within their own little world and believe that they can manage and create and respond to the market. But as was said in the previous presentation, it's very important to understand who that market really is and who those customers really are, not, again, through your own filters of who you believe they are. So this great comment that I picked up off Forbes magazine a bit ago is outside in is an offensive play. Because, again, it's not reactive. You are constantly out there looking from that different perspective back into the organization. So the first step I would recommend, and when I talk to many people, they pause when I start talking about the customer journey. I think they have, in their minds, understand a particular sales process or how the funnel works, but they've not taken a step back in a very omni-channel world and mapped out those customer journeys across all of those different channels. It can be very simple, or it can be very complex. It's really the level of effort you want to apply to understanding, but it's very important to understand how and where all of those potential inputs are to bring into the organization. Again, that could be physical and virtual, both. So the first is Net Promoter. How many people in the room use Net Promoter now? Or just a couple? Okay. So Net Promoter is based on the fundamental perspective that every company's customers can be divided into three categories: promoters, passive, and detractors. It's based on one simple question: how likely are you to recommend to somebody else? Research, and I have actually tried to get my hands on this. No one, even though people tell me this, they don't want to give me the actual data. But there are organizations who are using NPS to use it as an indicator for future financial performance. They are actually seeing the results of ingesting that very active customer iterative feedback into their organization and saying, okay, here, based on this, is where we believe we will be 6 months, 12 months down the road. NPS should be used as an overall brand measure, and it gives you an opportunity to create customer centricity. So just to show you a quick graphic, NPS is based on a rating of 1 through 10. The detractors, who I'll talk about in a second, are 0 to 6. 7 and 8 are the passives. 9 and 10 are the promoters. Sorry about that. So, and to calculate your NPS, it's very simple. NPS is equated to the percentage of promoters minus the percentage of detractors. As long as you're in the positive, above 0, you're good. It's not very complicated. The program goals is an opportunity to assess member customer satisfaction, retention and engagement, an opportunity to recover detractors, mobilize those promoters, drive accountability, uncover insights, and again, lastly, use it to predict future financial performance. So how the scoring works. Promoters are loyal, enthusiastic fans. They are the ones in that huge social space that are walking around saying, I love this company, I love their products. There's not much you need to do for them. For the passives, they're passively satisfied. They're kind of like, yeah, I need this, I'm okay with it. But if somebody would present them with a better deal, they'd be very quick to run to that other organization. Their referrals are less likely to be qualified and less enthusiastic. Again, there is something that is sticking in their mind, it's in their subconscious when they're talking to Bob, Mary, or Sue, that they just really, yeah, they do a good job. If you really need that service, great, go for it, but not very enthusiastic about it. Detractors, they're very unhappy members or customers. They account for about 80% of that negative word of mouth. Going back to the sort of single channel world, that was kind of easier to manage. Today, it's very hard for you to manage because there is the social space, there is all that chatter going on about you, and those detractors are out there in those different spaces saying things about you that you may or may not know. They have a high rate of churn and defection. So there are two core insights that you want to learn. Are your members, customers, promoters, detractors, or passives? An opportunity is to send one question to members and customers. How likely are you to recommend this company to your friend? For promoters, you don't need to ask further on questions, but if someone responds in the range of 0 through 8, the opportunity is to ask further questions. That can be, what is one thing that we can do to improve? What is it that has the biggest impact of the score? What do you like most about the organization? Because you've engaged them in this way, and because it's short, there's only 2 questions, they're more unlikely to create that engagement with you in the immediate. Sorry, I'm gonna. So from a member customer retention perspective, rescue and close the loop with at-risk members, identify those that are at risk of deflecting in time and pull them back into the fold, identify the innovations member and customers value most. Again, this is a very active listening approach because this is iterative, this is always going, whether it's through the physical experience, on the phone, or virtually and digitally. The other opportunity is ACSI, the American Consumer Satisfaction Index Survey. Is anybody currently using this? It's created by a company called 4C Results. There was, based on a methodology coming out of Michigan. It has, through the methodology, standard questions that it asks. They have expanded into the omni-channel world. You can do this digitally. You can do this through phone or in person. The survey is more complex. It's not 1 question, it's not 2 questions. But what it allows you to do is understand the different segments, whether it's content, it's service, performance of digital, performance of customer service staff, with a variety of other open-ended questions to create that active listening experience. One of the cool tools that they have is called Session Replay. And what Joanne was mentioning, from understanding who the audience is and what they're doing, this is the tool that I have the most experience with. And this is a very active listening, active ingestion of feedback approach, because this allows you not to form preconceived notions if you look through a click pass. So if you do an audience analysis of your digital properties and you see someone going through something, you're seeing, well, you're not looking at the hard statistics, you're actually seeing in a video how that customer transitioned. You can see the mouse shake as they try to make a decision about where they should be going next. Those are those small physical disruptions that can cause a customer to bail, end their shopping cart, or end the experience with you. And this is going to be hard to see as well, but one of the opportunities that ACSI and 4C offer is your ability to model that behavior and that input around certain elements. A lot of the top part of the slide is focused on mobile and how people interact with you across those different channels. On the bottom, it's demonstrating how navigation, look, feel, functionality, on return to the mobile site, recommend the mobile site, or purchase offline or online, all feed into that overall customer satisfaction, which translates to dollars. And it's something the organization has focused on the past few years because they were getting a lot of questions around how can I understand what the financial performance is of the data that you're now giving me. This is another opportunity to look at data from ACSI results. And this is showing how the ACSI survey collection, the open-ended questions, the social, all come in to create what is called the word-of-mouth index. It's very similar to 4C, or I'm sorry, to Net Promoter, but a bit of a different model that gives you perspective on all of the chatter and all the voices happening around you. So one of the opportunities here is to take that chatter, that feedback, that active listening, and convert the feedback into action, whether that's better understanding the customer segments and how they really feel and what they think about you, what their pain points are through those different technologies and opportunities, and convert that to, or understand that from a conversion failure perspective. And I don't want to get into heavy on the predictive analytics, but all of this does translate into organizations trying to predict future behaviors, and capturing the real-time sentiment allows you to measure, allows you to take a step back and analyze and have good impact on the overall customer experience. It radically changes how organizations think about their activities. It's not an organization saying, okay, we believe the market wants this, we're going to develop this product 18 months from now and we'll launch it. In this world, that market has completely shifted in that 18 months. So these opportunities allow you to take the step back, say, okay, how can I fix the shopping experience? How can I correct the visual interactions? Here's what our customers are saying about us. Protect revenue today, hopefully increase revenue today, opposed to waiting to increase revenue 18 months down the road when you've now spent millions of dollars to create a product the market may not want. So lastly, results. If you actually do take a step back, actively listen, look at the different tools and approaches that you can use, you will proactively address and be able to make tweaks to a lot of the bumps that you have now. You will be able to continually enhance the overall member customer experience. We are in the age of the customer. It's all about the customer these days. They have so much access and they have so much voice, which is much different than even a few years ago. That experience is incredibly important. It allows you to introduce products and services that really resonate and meet the market demand. It demonstrates you are doing things differently and you are engaging, that you are listening to them. Even someone, and this isn't a news story, but even someone that you let go off for 5 minutes, whether that be via email, they vented. They have a different perspective of you or opinion of you now because you did listen. They may not have been excited or happy with the outcome, but you did indeed engage them, take their feedback, and they will more than likely be loyal to you in the future because of that. So at the last slide provides some more information. If you want to take a deep dive into Net Promoter Score, there are opportunities out there to become certified in Net Promoter. A lot of different case studies and a lot of information. I've also included information on the ACSI survey and some definitions within the presentation about active listening. If you just Google active listening, you get a host of material on Wikipedia, and there are a variety of other good books out there that are great reference points.